Hi, welcome everybody to this webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Aika, and I'm a product marketer here at DBT Labs. We will start momentarily. I would love for all of you to introduce yourselves in the chat. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from and say hi to your fellow attendees. I myself am broadcasting from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm super excited to get started soon. Before we dive in, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, please use the Q&A tab. And if you want to react or share any takeaways, you can definitely do that in the chat tab. This is an inclusive space. Please ask tough questions, share your constructive feedback, but let's make sure to keep it all very kind and respectful. We are recording this session, and you will get a link to the recording within 24 hours. Finally, we're doing something really exciting this time around. There will be a survey, which we will link at the end of the webinar in the chat. And if you fill out the survey, you will be entered into a raffle to win Nintendo Switch. So make sure to stick around till the end. Look out for that link in this chat for the survey and fill it out. On to some official introductions. My name is Aika Zikibaeva. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at DBT Labs, and I lead product marketing for Fusion. And today I will walk you through a little bit of history and context as to how we made the journey from DBT to Fusion and why it matters in today's world. And I'm joined by a very special guest, Michael Carlone. He's the Director of Analytics Engineering at Brooklyn Data. Brooklyn Data is a visionary partner of DBT Labs, which basically means that they have demonstrated advanced proficiency across DBT platform and have a strong track record of helping customers with implementation and adoption. In today's session, Michael Watt will walk through what it means to be Fusion ready and give you some practical examples as to how to assess whether or not you are ready to get Fusion in your company. Before we dive into the Fusion content, I do want to make a quick plug for something really exciting. DBT Summit is happening September 15th through 18th in Las Vegas. This is our annual conference, and we would love for you to be there. And moreover, Call to Papers is now open. So if you have a story, a win, or any examples of how you've been using DBT or Fusion within your work, we would love for you to have this platform to share out to similar DBT users and the community as to what it is that you've accomplished. So we encourage you to fill out the call for papers as soon as possible. Here's where we're headed with this webinar. We already covered the intros. Next, we'll ground ourselves in what DBT is and the problems it was designed to solve. Then we'll talk about why Fusion and what has changed in the ecosystem that makes it the right choice for DBT and customers like you. From there, Michael will walk us through what Fusion readiness means and how Brooklyn Data is actually assessing readiness for customers like you. And we'll close with some key takeaways and concrete next steps that you're not just inspired by, but you know exactly what to do. Let's level set on what DBT is. DBT Core was built in 2016, and it really revolutionized how we think about data transformation, bringing software engineering best practices to SQL-based analytics workflows. It really created a new industry standard. Treat your transformations like code, version controlled, tested, documented, and deployed, rather than a pile of ad hoc SQL scattered across your warehouse. As of today, there are more than 80,000 teams that rely on DBT and over 5,500 organizations that are DBT platform customers. And of course, I would remiss if I left out the amazing DBT community, which has grown to over 100,000 members strong. And they're one of the most active communities out there across Slack, meetups, and local groups all over the world. Seriously, if you aren't in the DBT community workspace, I would highly encourage you to join today. Actually, drop in the chat if you're already a Slack member for DBT. Go like this or like that. And if you're a thumbs down, it's all good. You can join today. We would love to have you. So, how did DBT become the de facto standard for data teams? Well, first, it's SQL friendly and version controlled, which means more of your team, analysts, analytics engineers, and even some business users can safely contribute without going full data engineer. Second, reusable code and macros speed up development. You're not rewriting the same logic in a dozen places. Third, built-in CI/CD, testing, and dependency management make pipelines more reliable and troubleshooting faster. And finally, auto-generated lineage and documentation increase trust and understanding, which becomes even more important as you start feeding that context into AI and LLMs. So, as DBT adoption grew, teams started to need more than a CLI tool. They needed a way to collaborate safely and govern across, schedule and monitor jobs, and connect DBT to the rest of their data ecosystem. That's where DBT Platform comes in. It really takes that same developer-friendly workflow and makes it enterprise-ready. You may have been asking yourself, if DBT has been so successful and has grown so rapidly, why introduce a whole new engine? Well, as a reminder, DBT was originally designed in 2016, and it did an amazing job of introducing software best practices to analytics. But the world has changed. We now live in a world of multi-dialect SQL, open table formats like Iceberg, affordable elastic compute, and of course, AI-assisted development. So, before we get super into the details of Fusion, I want you to consider these two mental models. One, the authoring layer. That's your SQL, YAML, project layout, and two, the engine itself, which compiles and runs it. Fusion is that new engine. It keeps your authoring layer intact while completely rethinking how dbt parses, understands, and executes your project. Let's talk about what's been painful in the legacy dbt core workflow. With traditional dbt core, you often needed to run against the warehouse just to catch errors like syntax issues or type mismatches, broken dependencies. That means slower feedback loops for developers. You write some SQLs, kick off a run, maybe go get coffee, and only to find out that something went wrong way after. This means billable compute just to learn that something doesn't work. You're paying your warehouse to be your linter. As data becomes more strategic and expectations rise around both quality and velocity, that model starts to break down. Fusion flips that experience on its head. With the dbt Fusion engine, dbt deeply understands your SQL as you write it, validating queries locally before you ever hit the warehouse. You get real-time feedback on code quality and errors, so fewer surprises mid-run and much faster iteration. Because validation happens locally, you can avoid unnecessary warehouse compute, and you don't need to materialize full models just to see if the SQL compiles. You also start seeing things like CTE previews, better navigation, and early refactoring assistance directly in the IDE, whether that's in VS Code or the dbt Cloud IDE. All right, so under the hood, Fusion is a step function upgrade from the original engine for three primary reasons. Number one, it's built in Rust. It's a programming language known for its performancy. We're seeing the results already. We're seeing 30 times faster parsing improvements, meaning operations are low latency and highly parallel. You'll feel the speed when using the engine to do anything. Secondly, it's a compiler, meaning it deeply comprehends SQL syntax and semantics across the data platforms. Metadata, SQL validation, intelligent state management, it's a whole new primitive that powers everything. Finally, it's stateful, meaning Fusion can optimize its runtime by avoiding unnecessary work. It does this by storing state about what it did before. So where are we with Fusion today? Well, it's in preview for eligible projects on BigQuery, Databricks, Redshift, and Snowflake. And how does it translate to real-life benefits for customers like you? Well, first, for developer experience, Fusion makes working in dbt feel more like working in a modern IDE. Instant validation, CTE previews, and rich navigation. It's honestly more fun and less nerve-wracking to build models now. On cost optimization, that state-aware execution means you don't need to rerun models that don't need to rerun. Tests are executed efficiently, and column-aware CI/CD can target only what's actually impacted. Finally, on AI and advanced use cases, Fusion generates rich metadata, column-level lineage, column level details, lineage, impact analysis, and sensitivity information. Exactly the kind of governed context AI system need to be trustworthy on your data. This is why we say Fusion is the future of DBT. It's not just faster, it's building the foundation to safely put AI to work on top of your transformation layer. And this is exactly where our partnership with Brooklyn Data really comes into focus. With that, I am excited to hand it over to Michael to talk more about the great work they've been doing on what Fusion readiness means in practice. Take it away, Michael.
Thanks, Aika. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Michael Carlone, and I'm Director of Analytics Engineering here at Valier and Brooklyn Data. Valier and Brooklyn Data offers more than 2 decades of digital agency impact with deep hands-on expertise in modern data platforms. With over 200 strategists, technologists, creatives, and engineers working as one unified team, we deliver end-to-end solutions, from strategy through to implementation. We're industry agnostic but deeply informed, pairing cross-sector perspective with domain-specific insights. Most importantly, we operate as your long-term data partner, guiding organizations with the tools, talent, and strategy they need to thrive in a data-driven world. We're also one of DBT Labs' visionary consulting and services partners. Our team holds significant DBT credentials, including 15 active DBT developer certifications and 5 active architect certifications. We're active contributors to the DBT ecosystem as well. We're the creators and maintainers of the widely used packages DBT Artifacts and DBT GA4. And we're contributors to the DBT Fusion Docker project to help support scalable production-grade workflows. If you happen to be in New York City, we're a longtime sponsor of the New York City DBT meetup as well. Aside from the Fusion Readiness framework, we also offer other quick starts. Our data to decision, or D2D framework, allows you to go from ideation to insight in just 12 weeks. Furthermore, this gives you the proper foundation to continue to grow, build, and scale your data capabilities. We also offer DBT training and enablements. We cover everything from DBT basics to advanced topics and tailor our enablements to the problems and needs of your organization. Whether it's trying to go from 0 to 1, or really diving into a thorny architecture problem and need the help and assistance of an expert to help solution with, we're here to impart our knowledge and our expertise. And that brings us to Fusion Readiness. What exactly is Fusion Readiness, and what does it mean for you? Before we talk about Fusion Readiness, we need to address the elephant in the room. Readiness is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Every data team is different. Teams around the world operate with different levels of maturity, with different technical complexities, and different governance expectations. Most importantly, teams operate with different tolerances for change. So when we talk about being fusion ready, we're not talking about a universal checklist. We're talking about understanding what makes your organization unique, your dependencies, your workflows, your risk profiles, and identifying where the real gaps or blockers might be. That's why a good readiness assessment has to be tailored. It should surface the realities of how your team builds and delivers data today. So the transition to Fusion is intentional, low risk, and value driven. Fusion is powerful, but the goal should not be to migrate fast. The goal should be to migrate smart. Because every team is unique, it's not about keeping up with the trends. Readiness, therefore, should be an internal measure, and any internal measure has to start the same way, by looking inward. To build confidence in a Fusion migration, you need to understand the foundation you're starting from. What's strong, what's fragile, and where real gaps exist across your DBT project, your processes, and your team. Honestly, though, this is what data practitioners do best. We gather information from different places, we synthesize it, and we present it in a way that is clear and actionable. And that's what this readiness assessment does. It turns uncertainty into insight and gives teams the confidence to move forward with Fusion intentionally, instead of guessing or hoping that everything works out. Therefore, the goal is not speed, but rather the goal is confidence. There is no question that Fusion represents a major step forward for DBT practitioners and modern data teams. However, the best outcomes don't come from moving the fastest. They come from moving at the right time with the right amount of confidence, and this is all defined by your team. This is why readiness matters. It depends on your goals, your maturity, and your constraints. Most importantly, it also assesses your organization's tolerance for change. Readiness is not about increasing the pressure to migrate. It's not about setting a date. It's about increasing the confidence in the success of the migration. So when you take that step forward, you have a clear and measurable understanding of where you're starting from. When you get that look inward, you get the clarity, the prioritization, and the path forward that actually fits your organization. Fusion is just the destination, but readiness is the roadmap. So what does it actually mean to be fusion ready? Fusion readiness is not the finish line. It's getting that confidence to take that next step. Being fusion ready means that you have the confidence in your data foundation to allow you to make the leap to fusion smoothly, securely, and at scale. That word is intentional. I keep saying it, confidence. Readiness is not about pressure. It's not about accelerating timelines, and it's not about forcing a migration before you're ready. It's about understanding your foundation well enough to know that when you take that step forward, you have confidence that it's going to succeed. Everything we've talked about so far leads here. Knowing that every team is unique, recognizing that readiness builds confidence, and defining a timeline that works for you. So now the question becomes, how do you build that confidence in a structured and measurable way? How do you understand where your foundation is strong and where it needs reinforcement before making the move? That's where the assessment comes in. So how do we actually measure this? At Brooklyn Data, we evaluate fusion readiness across three core pillars. In our experience, these pillars represent every data team around the world, and every data team's success will always come down to these three pillars. They are project, process, and people. Let's break it down. Project is the technical reality. It's your DBT project itself, your models, the macros you may use, the packages you may have installed, the tests you may have configured, custom materializations, and the patterns that you rely on today. Everything here represents your project, and everything here needs to work in Fusion. Process is how you build and ship. This includes development workflows, CI/CD, deployment practices, governance, and most importantly, how consistently can your team deliver changes? And people is self-explanatory. This is the organization behind it all. The analytics engineers, the data engineers, data analysts. It's about ownership, accountability, and whether the right expertise and culture exists to support a migration successfully. And the most important thing here, these pillars don't exist in isolation. Fusion readiness is really the sum of all three parts. Strong technology without process creates chaos. Strong process without ownership creates risk. And even the best teams will struggle if the project foundation isn't ready. Whether you're an engineer thinking about code or a leader thinking about risk, this creates a shared language that is easy to understand and interpret. So when we bring those three pillars together, project, process, and people, we arrive at an overall fusion readiness score. Each pillar is evaluated independently and returns a numeric score out of 100. Those scores are then combined to give you a holistic view of your readiness. It sounds simple, because it is. Fusion readiness shouldn't be something that you have to complicate. It shouldn't be something that you have to optimize in isolation. You can't have a successful migration with a strong project and weak processes. You can't rely on great people if the foundation or the governance is not there. Therefore, readiness is not about perfection in one area. It's about creating a solid foundation across all three pillars. It's the sum of all the parts that determines whether a migration will land smoothly, and therefore it's the sum of all the parts that gives you confidence that the migration will succeed. This approach gives teams a clear and objective way to understand where they're ready today and where focused investment should occur so that it has the biggest impact on confidence and success. So now that we've talked about the general fusion readiness process, let's dive into some examples. On the left, you're looking at a real readiness profile across three pillars: project, process, and people. Before we interpret it, The key thing to understand across all the examples is that this is not about passing or failing. It's about understanding risk and solidifying confidence. Now let's walk through it together. Starting with project, this team scores in the mid-90s. That tells us that their DBT project is modern, well-structured, and already aligned with DBT best practices and the capabilities available in Fusion. From a technical standpoint, we're expecting very little friction. Looking at process, the score is slightly lower. They have standardized development and deployment practices, with a few opportunities to tighten consistency and improve governance. As a leader, I read this as manageable risk, not a blocker. And finally, let's look at people. This team has a strong, experienced data organization across analytics, data, and engineering. Ownership is clear, and the expertise exists to troubleshoot issues if anything goes sideways. So when I step back and I look holistically, I see a team that is Fusion ready. They have a technical foundation, they have organizational strength, and only minor process improvements exist in order to increase confidence in a successful migration. Even for teams that are Fusion ready, the score is important. You now know where you're strong, where to invest, and how to move forward intentionally. Let's look at a second example. This is a team that we describe as in reach. If we start with process, there's a solid foundation. They have established development workflows, automation, and a strong analytics development lifecycle. This is our important anchor. Now, when we start to branch out, the gaps start to appear in project and people. From a project standpoint, this DBT project could be migrated, but there are some foundational gaps that could surface during the migration and introduce friction or delays if we don't address them first. On the people side, the organization would benefit from deeper internal expertise. That doesn't mean the team isn't capable. It means they haven't yet built the hands-on experience with the patterns and potential complexity that Fusion will expect. Now, this is the important part from a leadership perspective. These aren't red flags, but instead it's a roadmap. And this assessment tells me that my process is something that I can rely on. My investment should focus on the project and my people. And the interesting thing is, those two are connected. By strengthening the project, I give my team the reps and the experience that they need to grow their expertise. Therefore, readiness is not static, it's iterative. Each improvement will improve confidence, and each improvement is going to therefore improve my scores. This allows me to reassess, see progress over time, and move this team from in reach to confidently Fusion ready. Finally, let's look at the third example. This is a team that needs refinement. At first glance, a lot looks strong. On people, this is another exceptional data organization. There's deep experience across the modern data stack, clear ownership, and the technical expertise that you want to see in a team tackling something like Fusion. Process is also strong. They have a mature analytics development lifecycle with good balance between standardization and flexibility. From a delivery standpoint, this team knows how to operate. But when we look at the project, the picture changes. The DBT project itself is not in a place where Fusion migration would go smoothly. There are structural and foundational issues that would introduce a real risk during the migration. Even with strong people and strong processes behind it, we don't have the confidence that we can make the jump to Fusion. And this is why the readiness assessment is holistic. One weak pillar can destabilize the entire foundation. Great teams with great processes can struggle if the project itself is not ready. The upside, though, is as a leader, I have clarity. I know exactly where to invest. I already have the people and the processes in place to improve the project intentionally. Again, I can iterate and I can reassess. This is not a no to Fusion. It's a very clear not yet. And even more importantly, it's a very clear here's what I need to fix first. So now we've gone over the assessment, and what are your takeaways? First, being Fusion ready is about confidence, not speed. DBT offers two amazing products in Core and Fusion. Therefore, readiness is not about accelerating timelines or reacting to pressure. It's about knowing that when you do migrate, you're set up for success. It's about knowing that it's okay to stay on Core until you're confident in your move to Fusion. Second, readiness is holistic. And in order to get this holistic picture, you need to first take a look at where you're starting from. You need a clear view across project, process, and people to understand where you're strongest, where your opportunities are, and where targeted investment will have the biggest impact. One pillar alone will not tell you the full story. Instead, it's the sum of all the parts that give you the clearest picture about where you stand today. And third, the best way to reduce risk is to look inward and let data teams do best. Gather the data, synthesize it, interpret it, and use it to make an informed and confident decision about the path forward. This allows you to shift to a readiness first mindset and allows you to accelerate value while minimizing any risk. Fusion is not a moment. Readiness is not a moment. It's an understanding. And with the right insight, every team can move forward with the clarity, confidence, and intent that they need. Readiness doesn't push you forward, but instead, readiness gives you the permission to move with confidence. And with that, we've now set the foundation for what Fusion readiness really means. It's not about rushing migration timelines. It's about building confidence through a clear and holistic understanding of your project, your processes, and your people. And once you have that clarity, you can invest intentionally and move forward with a roadmap instead of guesswork. And now that we've covered the why behind readiness and the structure of the assessment, if this interests you, feel free to reach out. You can reach us at hello@brooklyndata.co and schedule your readiness assessment with us. It takes just under an hour and lets us provide real targeted feedback to you. And so with that, I'd like to pass this back to Aika. Thank you for taking the time. And yeah, Aika, back to you.
Thank you, Michael, for that wonderful walkthrough of the readiness assessment. And thanks everybody for joining today. As always, you can get started with Fusion today. Just click the Talk to an Expert button on the screen now. Otherwise, if you don't want the fun to end, we are hosting a hands-on workshop next month, March 3rd and 4th. This is a great way for DBT core users to understand how they can upgrade to Fusion and get your hands on keyboards while doing so. Don't forget about that survey, and we hope to see you at the next event. Thank you.